All right, we speak now to someone who's very familiar with student protests. The Vice-Chancellor of Wits University, Habib, has announced his resignation. Habib will be leaving one of Africa's most well-known, most illustrious institutions after 7 years at the helm. He's accepted an offer to serve as the Director of the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London from next year. So why now? What sort of legacy does he leave in higher education? Professor Habib joining us in studio now. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, congratulations, I guess, on the new job. For many, this will be a loss to South Africa, to Wits. Is it all about a new opportunity?
Well, partly yes. I am in my second term, and at the end of the year, I would have about 2.5 years left as Vice-Chancellor of Wits. And the big question was, what would I do after that? I would be in my mid-50s. And I was beginning to start asking questions. I thought it would take longer when I started engaging headhunters. But suddenly the opportunity opened up to Wits OAS. And they'd asked me to apply. And so I think it's a good time to leave. I think Wits is doing well research-wise. It's doing well academic-wise. Its finances are stable. We've got a great team. So I think it is time to move on and give somebody else the opportunity to lead one of South Africa's and Africa's great institutions.
And I ask the question because you've commented extensively on South African politics. You were caught up in the politics, in the fees must fall, pitted against very angry students. Can we read anything into this, that given the tough times, you feel it's better to be somewhere else?
Well, to be honest, the really tough times were 2015 and 2016. Since 2017, Wits has been really stable and fairly quiet. We haven't had a major protest for the last 3 years. 2016 was really difficult. If I was going to leave at any point, it would have been then. We're actually doing very well now. We're happy. It's been fairly stable, in part because of the collective endeavors of students, of staff, of professional and administrative staff, executive staff, the executive team itself, the council. So I think Wits is at a good point. We're doing well, as I said. And
so you're still a proud South African and a proud Witsie.
I'm a proud Witsie. Wits was for me always a passion. It wasn't a job. Because I've always said that if we're going to transform South African society, we have to transform Wits. We have to make sure that it's a world-class institution. And I think we've done that. And I'll give you the numbers if you like. I think we are an incredibly strong, world-class institution and one that is transforming. And I think that we should all be collectively proud of it.
You said the tough times are over for Wits. I don't know if these visuals are relating to what we've seen at the University of KwaZulu-Natal as well in recent days. So I guess there's still ructions ongoing. Are you following that closely?
I'm following it very closely. I had a conversation with many vice-chancellors this morning and this afternoon. I'm not so sure that Wits is out of the thing. I think we're stable. I think we're doing well. But I also think so long as there's ferment in our higher education system, it always can come back. And I worry about South Africa's higher education system. I think we're destroying South African universities. I think there's a political adventurism by student leaders. I think there's a political adventurism by some politicians who pass themselves as MPs in our national parliament. I think we should be worried. If we allow these kinds of things to play out, we're destroying our universities. UKZN was one of the great institutions of the African continent. We've put it on its knees because 200 people are paralyzing it, are burning infrastructure, are violating the rights of people. This is unacceptable. How can we be burning institutions and nobody be arrested? We are destroying our institutions, and I worry about that. I worry about that as a South African. I worry about that as one of the vice-chancellors of South African universities. And I think we collectively should hang our heads in shame that we are allowing the kinds of things that play out in UKZN.
Well, I think it was 2016, you were criticized by those student leaders for calling in the police. Looking back at what you went through, any regrets?
Absolutely not. When political leaders threaten our public institutions, I will rise to their defense. Those universities are important for the future of our children and generations to come. I will not apologize for stopping people from burning our institution. I will not apologize for stopping protesters from attacking students. I will not apologize for stopping protesters from attacking academics. Our universities need those academics, need that infrastructure, need those talented students. And I will rise to the defense of those institutions. So yes, I did call the police. I hated doing so. But precisely because we called them, none of those buildings were burnt at Wits University. Yeah. And I think that the police must do their jobs. It is not the job of vice-chancellors to protect public property. It is the responsibility of the police. We should not be allowing infrastructure in universities to be burnt. We should be ashamed that this is happening. And we should be asking the Minister of Police, what is he doing to ensure that our public universities are kept safe?
Well, let me get your comment, because there were convictions, but very few, and then Nkesha is now free. If you look at what happened afterwards, do you think the wheels of justice turned as they should have?
No, they firstly didn't turn, so let's be clear. Yeah. The one person or two persons that were arrested were actually arrested for burning a police vehicle, not for 2 billion rand worth of infrastructure being burnt in the universities. So the question is, how is it that when universities burn, nobody gets arrested, but when a police vehicle gets burned, then somebody gets arrested? Second, in that case, I can understand that somebody who's 20 years old and makes a mistake mustn't pay for the rest of their lives. But when you allow somebody to go out without any qualification, without saying it was wrong to burn, I think we've got a problem. We are complacent about violence in our society. And because we are complacent, our protests are violent, our strikes are violent, and we have the kind of scourge of violent attacks on women, violent attacks on children. We murder our own people. And that's unacceptable because we tolerate this kind of violence in our society. We as a collective nation should be ashamed of what we are allowing. And this is something we need to stand.
So you're saying what's happening on campus is fostering tolerance for violence across society?
I think what we are allowing on our campuses, what we allow in our parliament, and the fact that we allow MPs who defend violence in our society is an unacceptable situation. And I think it's time we as South Africans started holding the political activists and the politicians accountable. They should not be destroying our public institutions, because our children, our grandchildren have to go to those universities. And if those universities don't exist, we will not be able to create the human capital that is required to build an inclusive nation. Socialism, inclusion, economic growth doesn't happen through some wish list. It doesn't happen through political rhetoric. It happens through political choices and the building of public institutions. Look there. We're destroying our public institutions. Where, in which part of the world would this be defensible?
So for those who would say you're a reactionary, I suspect this comes from someone who actually believes in free education, that education should be free.
I think it should be, but I also think that we should understand where we are at this moment. We've got to do education, we've got to free basic education, we've got to do the NHI. We have to see this as part of a process. And anybody says to me, you're reactionary, I want to say, I was fighting the anti-apartheid struggle long before many of these people were born. I was arrested. I fought and dedicated my entire life to building a more inclusive society. So I don't take seriously what politicians say. I don't take seriously what these political activists say. When I became VC of Wits, I was asked to do certain things, drive graduations, ensure that we produce postgraduates, ensure that we do research, create a financially sustainable institution. Here's it. In 2013, we had 7,000 graduates. In 2019, we had 9,500. In 2013, we had 1,200 research units. In 2019, we had 2,000 research units. In 2013, we had 9,800 postgraduates. In 2019, we had 15,000. We are a financially stable institution, and we have 82% black students, and actually our academic cohort has for the first time moved in 2019 to a majority black. Now this is transforming with excellence. I don't care what political activists say. I don't care what two great politicians say. What you measure us by is what you measure universities by. Graduations, research, postgraduates, financial sustainability, transformation. And on every one of those indicators, we've shot the lights out. That's how you deliver.
Okay, so talking about your critics, this is interesting. Ebo Dlamini, one of those saying that you should not actually be leaving right now, and saying that despite the differences, you were actually the right man to deal with the chaos that ensued in 2015 and 16.
So I did see that.
What do you think about that?
I did see that. I've always had an interesting relationship with Nkebo. I remember once he said to me, "You're like a father to me." But I do worry about one thing, and this is a principal question, and it's not only about Nkebo. I worry about what people say publicly on the one side and privately on the other. I think too much of our politicians, frankly, have learnt their politics from Jacob Zuma and Julius Malema. You say one thing in private, you say another thing in public. And I think that lack of integrity across the political divide is why South Africans don't like their politicians. So the politicians in South Africa are the least trusted group of any stakeholder. Why? Because nobody trusts them. They don't believe that this group of people have a sense of integrity. Look at Parliament. Look how South Africans are ashamed of how these people behave in Parliament. This is not leadership. This is an embarrassment. And until South Africans start choosing leaders that we can be proud of and have a sense of integrity, we will continue to languish on growth, on inclusion, and all of the other multiplicity of challenges we have.
Well, let's bring it down to Wits. You've spoken about transformation. That was one of your visions. And you also said that it should be a world-class institution. Can we have world-class right now, given what's going on in our universities?
Absolutely. If we do not have world-class institutions, we can't do the kinds of research that allow us to find vaccines for the diseases that we have, that we can't formulate the kinds of technologies that require us to grow our economy, that we can't create the human resource skills that allows us to compete in the 21st century globalized economy we have. We have to have world-class institutions. What we need is a differentiated higher education system. Some institutions that focus on undergraduate training, some institutions that comprehensive and focus on both, some institutions that focus on masters and PhD. We need the entire suite of institutions. And if we think that as we transform, we must have weak institutions, that as more and more black people come into our higher education institution, the quality will fall, we will destroy this society. We can achieve both transformation and excellence. Wits is an example of that. There are many other places like UCT and many other places that are examples of how we can both transform and create world-class institutions, because that's where our future lies. And that's what we should be focusing on, not allowing the kind of destruction that is happening at UKZN and other institutions.
Well, you can give us an honest view about, besides the violence, there's a lot of debate about standards. Matric pupils and their parents saying the testing is harder than it's ever been before, but still some concern. Just tell me, if you look back, say, 10 years ago, what do you see in terms of standards of learners coming in and graduates leaving?
So I think that we produce world-class graduates. I must say, I watch this all the time. I think we produce world-class graduates. The graduates coming out of Wits, the top end, can compete with the best in the world, and we do it at 20% of the price. I think that's what we should remember. And I think we have an incredible opportunity to build these institutions. Is quality retained? Yes. Remember, we're producing far more graduates today than we did 10 years ago. And so people see the entire ambit. But on the top end, we have a fantastic layer. Let me say one other thing. People coming out with university degrees, the unemployment rate for people coming out with university degrees is less than 7%. Remember this when people talk about graduate employability. People forget that. It's an incredible investment to get a higher education degree in this country.
All right, we're running out of time. Well, we've run out of time. Thank you. But you did promise me off air that you will still drive an agenda. This won't be treading water for the next year. Vice-Chancellor of Wits University, Adam Habib, leaving after almost a full year at the end of December.